So children, now we are going to move to Unit 3 of the Term 1, the Democratic Politics. Under this head, we are going to study 4 sections: the democratic political mechanism, federalism, democracy and diversity, gender, religion and caste. Under power sharing, we are going to deal with what power sharing is, why power sharing is desirable, majoritarianism in Sri Lanka, accommodation in Belgium, forms of power sharing. The word power sharing is made out of 2 words, the power plus sharing, which means sharing of power. In a democracy, all power cannot rest upon one organ. For the smooth functioning of a government, power is shared among different organs. Power sharing means sharing of powers by different groups or levels for smooth functioning of any system. In the past time, it was believed that power of a government should reside only in one person or one group of persons located at one place. It was all felt that if political power is dispersed, it would make delay to take decisions and to enforce them. If we talk about the presently, power sharing is highly necessary in a democratic country where a number of ethnic, linguistic and religious groups exist. It may differ in its aims, structures, outcomes and jurisdiction. Let's talk about Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka emerged as an independent country in 1948. It is an island nation, few kilometers off the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. Its population is around 2 crore. The social groups are Sinhala speakers, around 74% are Sinhala speakers and 18% are Tamil speakers. The Tamils have 2 groups. One, the Tamil native from Sri Lanka and the Tamils from India. The natives from the Sri Lanka, they were called the Sri Lankan Tamils, and those who were from India, they were called the Indian Tamils. The Sri Lankan Tamils, they were the Sinhala speakers. The Tamils from India were the Tamil speakers. The Sinhala speakers were placed in the north and east part of the country and they followed Buddhism. The Tamil speakers, mostly they were the Hindus or the Muslims. Majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. A belief that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whichever way it wants by disintegrating the wishes and needs of minority. The Sinhala community secured dominance over government by virtue of its majority. The Sinhala was adopted as the only official language. The government favored Sinhalas. Now this favoritism raised a sort of discontent and the relations between the Sinhala and the Tamil communities strained that turned into a civil war. Okay? Sri Lanka, we move on to Belgium. Belgium is a small country in Europe having borders with France, Netherlands, Germany and Luxembourg. Its population is around 1 crore. 59% lives in the Flemish region and they speak Dutch language. 40% live in the Wallonia region and they speak French, and the remaining 1% speak Germany. Right? Accommodation in Belgium. After the 4 amendments in the constitution, the Belgian leaders worked out a very different and innovative power sharing arrangement which was known as Belgium model. Some of the elements of Belgium model were that the number of Dutch and French ministers that was equal to the central government. Then the state governments are not subordinate to central government. In Brussels, both the communities have equal representatives. Community government is elected by people belonging to one language community. Now, reasons for power sharing. We talk about the 2 reasons, prudential and moral. In prudential, power sharing reduces the possibility of conflict between the social groups. It ensures the stability of political order. And the moral sharing says that the power sharing is the spirit of democracy. Power should reside in the hands of people. Do you understand it? The forms of power sharing. Federal division of powers is such a power sharing arrangement in which the constitution of the country clearly lays down division of powers at different levels of the government. Power is shared among different organs of the government. It is shared among governments at different levels. It may also be shared among different social groups. Power sharing can also be seen among political parties, pressure groups and movements. In this chapter, we saw that both Belgium and Sri Lanka claim to be democratic countries but faced problems of ethnicity. The Belgian leaders recognized the existence of regional differences and cultural diversities which resulted in mutually acceptable arrangements for power sharing. On the other hand, Sri Lanka refuses to share power and still reeling under the shadow of civil war. we talk about federalism. In this chapter, we are going to learn what federalism is, federal government and unitary government, types of federalism, key features of federalism, kinds of federalism, and what makes India a federal country and how federalism is practiced, decentralization in India. These are the things that we are going to study now. The term federalism is derived from the Latin word fidus, which means formal agreement or covenant. It includes the interrelationships between the states as well as the states and the federal government. Now, what is federalism? Federalism is a system of government in which the power is divided between the central authority and various constituent units of the country. This type of system is taken over in USA, Australia, Germany and India. Federalism has two levels of government, the one of the entire country and the government at the level of provinces or states. The government for the entire country is responsible for few subjects of common national interest, and the government for the provinces are responsible for day-to-day administration of their states. Federal government and unitary government. Federal government. In a federal form of government, the central government shares its powers with the various constituent units of the country. In it, the central government orders the state government to do something. State government has powers of its own for which it is not answerable to the central government. For example, India, USA, Canada. Unitary government. In unitary form of government, either there is only one level of government or the sub-units are subordinate to the central government. The central government can pass an order to the provincial or the local governments. It is taken into UK, China and France. Key features of federalism. So, these are the key features of federalism which state there are two or more levels of government in a federalism. Different tiers of government. The different tiers of government govern the same citizen, but each tier has its own jurisdiction. The jurisdiction of the respective levels or tiers of government are specified in the Constitution. No fundamental change. There is no fundamental change can be made in the Constitution without the consent of both the levels of government. An independent judiciary. An independent judiciary prevents conflicts between the center and state or states. Specified source of revenue. Each level of government has clearly specified sources of revenue. So, these were all the key features of federalism. Now, federal system has dual objectives. What are those dual objectives? The one objective is safeguard and promote unity. And the second objective is accommodate regional diversity. Kinds of federalism. It is of two types, the coming together federation and the holding together federation. The coming together federation, it is of the independent states voluntarily who form a bigger union. States and center have equal powers. That is conducted in USA, Switzerland and Australia. The holding together federation is wherein the large country is divided into the power between the states and central government. The central government is always more powerful than the regional or the state government, which is taken under India, Spain, Belgium. Now we will understand what makes India a federal country. So, the division of the legislative power here. The power sharing arrangement in our country is mainly based on the quasi-federal nature of the federation. The Constitution therefore clearly provides a threefold distribution of legislative powers between the union government and the state government. So, the three powers are the union list, the state list and the concurrent list. The division between the powers are that the union list deals with the 99 subjects which includes defense, banking, communication, etc. The state list deals with the 66 subjects like police, trade, commerce, etc. The concurrent list, it deals with 47 subjects like education, marriage, forest, etc. The basic difference is that Parliament here makes laws for the union list. The laws for the state list are made by the state legislature, and for the concurrent list, both the state legislature and Parliament make the laws. Are you understanding the concept? How is federalism practiced? Creation of linguistic states was done on two bases: culture, ethnicity, or geography, on the basis of language also. For example, Nagaland, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand. The language policy. Hindi is the official language of India. Besides Hindi, there are 21 other languages recognized as scheduled languages by the Constitution of India. The center and state relations. These both relations depend upon how the ruling parties and leaders follow the constitutional arrangements. Center-state relation means the relation between center and its units where there exists federal system. It is of great importance in the country like India, constrained by regionalism, religion, uneven development, demand for autonomy, and many other things. The state share of powers has also strengthened federalism in India. Decentralization in India. Decentralization means that some powers are taken away from the central and state governments and given to the local government. The Constitution was amended to make the third tier of democracy more powerful and effective in 1992. So now we are going to understand the reasons behind this decentralization. The reasons were that a large number of issues and problems can be solved at a local level. Local people have better knowledge of their problems. They can directly participate in the decision making. They have better ideas on where to spend money. Local people can manage things more efficiently. Then we come up to objectives towards decentralization in 1992. These objectives were to provide three-tier system of the Panchayati Raj, to hold Panchayat elections for every 5 years, to provide reservations for SC, SC and OBCs. 1/3 seats is reserved for women. State government to share some powers and revenue with local government bodies. Then we come up to the structure of the rural local government. What's the structure says? That the Gram Panchayats are grouped to form a Panchayati Samiti. The members are elected by all the Panchayati members of the area. All the Panchayat Samitis or Mandals in a district together constitute the Jila Parishad. Most members of the Jila Parishad are elected members. Members of the Lok Sabha and MLAs of the district are also its members. Jila Parishad chairperson is the political head of Jila Parishad. Now we understand the structure of the urban local government. It states that the municipalities are set up in towns. The big cities are constituted into municipality corporation. Both are controlled by elected bodies consisting of people's representatives. Municipal chairperson is the head of the municipalities, and in a municipal corporation, such an officer is called a mayor. Now we move on to democracy and diversity. In this chapter, we are going to learn the civil rights movement in the USA, the Black Power movement, the story of Mexico Olympics, the consequences of the action, the origins of social differences, overlapping and cross-cutting differences, politics of social division, the outcomes of politics of social division. Language and regions are not only features that give a distinct identity to the people. They can also be stated on the basis of their physical appearance, class, region, gender, caste, tribes, and many other forms. Democracy responds to the social differences, divisions, and inequalities on most appropriate ways. Besides regional and social divisions, racial divisions are also prevalent in many countries. A story of Mexico Olympics. In the 1968 Olympics, Smith and Carlos won the gold and bronze medals respectively. They received their medals wearing black socks, black gloves, and no shoes to represent black poverty. With this gesture, they tried to draw international attention to racial discrimination in the United States. The consequences of their action? The International Olympics Association held Carlos and Smith guilty of violating the Olympics spirit by making a political statement. Their medals were taken back. This was the height of rationalism. Civil rights movement in USA 1954 to 68. This movement refers to abolishing legal racial discrimination, the racial discrimination between blacks and whites. The civil rights movement refers to a set of events and reform movements aimed at abolishing legal racial discrimination against African Americans, led by Martin Luther King Jr. This movement practiced non-violent methods of civil disobedience against racially discriminatory laws and practices. Black Power movement. It was a militant anti-racist movement. It emerged in 1966 and lasted till 1975. It was a militant anti-racist movement. It advocated to end the racism in United States. This movement and related activities responded to the social division and inequalities. Therefore, social diversity can take different forms in different societies. Origins of social differences. Social differences are mostly based on accident of birth. At the same time, some of the differences are based on our choices too. Now we move on to the kinds of social differences. There are two kinds of social differences which are based on accident of birth and based on our own choices. We talk about the social differences that are based on accident of birth. We do not choose to belong to our community. We belong to it simply because we are born into it. We all experience social differences. People around us are male or female. They are tall or short, have a different complexion, or have different physical abilities and disabilities. Now we talk about the social differences which are based on our choices. For example, some people are atheists. They do not believe in God or any religion. Some choose to follow religion and other than in which they are born. Most of us choose what to study, which occupation to take up, and which game to play. So these are all based on our own choices. We are not born to choose them. Now the question comes, do social differences lead to social divisions? Every social difference does not lead to social division. Social differences divide similar people from one another, but they also unite different people. People belonging to different social groups share differences and similarities of their groups. People belonging to the same religion feel that they do not belong to the same community because their caste or society is different. Thus, we all have more than one identity and can belong to more than one group. The overlapping and cross-cutting differences. Under this, a social difference overlaps with another difference. The people start feeling that they belong to different communities. These create the possibilities of deep social divisions. For example, difference between blacks and the whites in USA and the Dalits in India. In the cross-cutting differences, under this, the social difference cross-cuts another difference. The groups can share a common interest on one issue but are likely to be different side on some different issue. These are easier to accommodate. For example, the Northern Ireland and Netherlands, both are predominantly Christians but divided between Catholics and Protestants. Politics of social division. Social division affects the politics of every country. Democracy involves competition among various political parties. Their competitions tends to divide society. It can make social divisions into political divisions and lead to conflict, violence, or even disintegration of a country. Social division affects voting in most countries. People from one community tend to prefer one party more than others. Outcomes of the politics of social divisions. There are three basic factors that decide the outcomes of the social divisions. They are identities, demands of any particular community, government's reaction. We talk about identities. The outcome depends on how people perceive their identities. If they see their identities in singular and exclusive terms, it becomes very difficult to accommodate. If people see their identities in multiples, it becomes easier for them to accommodate. In India, people tend to think themselves as Indian as well as a resident of a particular state or language group or social or religious community, which helps them to stay together in contact, in peace and harmony. Then we talk about the demands of any particular community. What does it mean? That it depends upon how political leaders raise the demands of any particular community. It becomes easier to accommodate demands that are within the constitutional framework of the nation and not at the cost of another community. Right? Then comes government's reaction. How do the government react? It largely depends on how the ruling government reacts to the demands of the different groups, what they are demanding and how the government is responding to their demands. It is mutual. In democracy, political expression of social division is normal and can be healthy and should not see as a source of danger to the nation. It allows many disadvantaged or marginalized social groups to express their grievances, and this encourages government to attend to their problems. Gender, religion and caste. In this chapter, we will learn what is gender division, the feminist movement, reasons for women discrimination, disadvantage and oppression, women's political representation, religion, communalism in politics, secular state, caste in politics and politics in caste. In any democratic system, people can politically express their views. The social differences that can take the form of social divisions and inequalities are based on gender, religion and caste. Now you must be thinking, what is meant by gender division? Gender division is a form of social division that exists in all countries but is not always expressed in politics. It refers to the unequal roles assigned by the society to men and women. Public and private division. Role of women in public life, especially in politics, is minimal. Only men participate in public affairs, voting, contesting for public offices. In our societies, sexual division of labor is universally prevalent, and it implies that the main responsibility of women is housework and looking after children. Works like cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, tailoring, etc. are meant for women, and men are expected to do all work outside the home. Men take the jobs when they are paid for, and they turn out to be world's finest cooks and tailors, etc. Results of division of labor. The gender issue was raised in politics. Women organized and agitated for equal rights. These agitations demanded enhancing the political and legal status of women and improving their educational and career opportunities. More radical women's movements aimed at equality in personal and family life as well. These movements were called as feminist movements. Political expression of gender division. It helped to improve women's role in public life. Women are found now working as scientists, doctors, engineers, astronauts, lawyers, managers, and college and university teachers. In some parts of the world, especially Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Norway, Finland, women participation is very much high as compared to the other parts of the world. Feminist movement. The movements carried out for the existence of voting rights of women, for enhancing the political and legal status of women and improving their educational and career opportunities are called feminist movements. Now we talk upon discrimination, disadvantage and oppression of women. There is low literacy rate. How? That the literacy rate among women is only 54% if we compare it to the 76% of the men. The low proportion in higher paid jobs. Still the women are having very low proportion of the higher paid jobs. They are paid very less if we compare it to the men. Then they are paid less for the same job. Women are paid less than men even when both of them are doing exactly the same job. This is definitely discrimination. Then the preferences for the male child. Sex-selective abortion led to a decline in the child-sex ratio in the country to merely 933. All communities prefer still the male child upon this female child. Then the violence and crime against women is also a disadvantage. There are reports of various kinds of harassment, exploitation and violence against women. Urban areas have become particularly unsafe for women. Every day you must also be coming across upon the reports of several rape cases, several assaults and all in schools even. So that crime has also increased to a very high rate. Women's political representation. Issues related to women's well-being or otherwise is not given adequate attention. One way to ensure this is to have more women as elected representatives. For example, the percentage of elected women members in Lok Sabha has never reached even 10% of its total strength. The share in the state assemblies is less than 5%. One way to solve this problem is to make it legally binding to have a fair proportion of women in the elected bodies. This is what the Panchayati Raj has done in India. 1/3 of the seats in local government bodies in Panchayati and municipalities are now reserved for women. Now there is more than 10 lakh elected women representatives in rural and urban local bodies. Women organizations and activists have been demanding a similar reservation of at least 1/3 of seats in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies for women. Gender division is an example that some form of social divisions needs to be expressed in politics. Social division based on religion. This division is not as universal as gender, but religious diversity is fairly widespread in the whole world today. Unlike gender differences, the religious differences are often expressed in the field of politics. Religious diversity is fairly widespread in the world today. Unlike gender differences, the religious differences are often expressed in the field of politics. Gandhiji used to say that religion can never be separated from politics. He believed that politics must be guided by ethics drawn from religion. Human rights groups has argued that most of the victims of communal riots in our country are people from religious minorities. Women's movement have argued that family laws of all religions discriminate against women. Government has ordered to make these laws more equitable. Communalism begins when it is considered that religion is the basis of the nation. Communalism is based on ideology that the followers of a particular religion must belong to one community. It is believed that people who follow different religions cannot belong to the same social community. In its extreme form, communalism leads to the belief that the people belonging to different religions cannot live as equal citizens in one nation. Communalism can take various forms in politics. The most common expression of communalism in everyday belief is the superiority of one's religion over other. The desire to form a majoritarian dominance or a separate state. The use of religious symbols and religious leaders in politics to appeal to the voters. Communal violence, riots and massacre. Secular state. The makers of our constitution were aware of the challenges faced due to communalism. That is why they chose the model of a secular state. The constitutional provisional of a secular state is there is no official religion for the Indian state. Unlike the status of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, that of Islam in Pakistan and that of Christianity in England, our constitution does not give special status to any or other religion. The constitution provides to us all individuals and communities freedoms to profess, practice and propagate any religion or not to follow any. The constitution prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion. The constitution allows the state to intervene in the matters of religion in order to ensure equality within religious communities. Caste in politics. Caste in our country plays a very important role in politics. India is a society which is divided on the basis of caste and people and very much influenced by the caste system. So, politicians try to take advantage of this situation and they try to create a chaos among the communities. Caste inequalities. There are some inequalities among different Indian castes. The relationship between caste and economic status has certainly changed a lot today. But it is possible also today to find very rich and very poor in every caste, whether low or high. This what is not true 20 or 30 years ago. Caste in politics. Caste can take the following forms in politics. When parties choose candidates in election, they keep in mind the caste composition so as to win elections. Political parties and candidates in elections make appeals to caste sentiments to muster support. Some political parties are known to favor some caste and some are seen as their representatives. Universal adult franchise and the principle of one person, one vote compelled political leaders to gear up to the task of mobilizing and securing political support. Politics in caste. Each caste group tries to maximize its size by incorporating neighboring castes and subcastes to show their might and strength. It leads to the formation of new caste groups in political arena like backward and forward caste groups. It gives disadvantaged community like Dalits and OBCs the space to demand their share of power.